Welcome back to EdTalks Daily. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Mack. Today's conversation asks a powerful question, one that challenges how we talk about history, identity, and belonging in America. Who do we call immigrants and why? Because when we examine history closely, we discover that the labels we use often oversimplify a much more complex truth. Let's begin. When people talk about Mexicans in America, the conversation is often framed around immigration. But history tells a deeper story. Long before modern national borders existed, before the United States, before Mexico as a nation-state, indigenous civilizations lived across this land. The Aztec, Maya, Olmec, Pueblo, Apache, and many others. Large parts of what now the America's Southwest, California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado, were once Mexico, and before that, indigenous land. In other words, many people of Mexican descent are connected to indigenous peoples whose presence on this continent predates the United States itself. That reality complicates the idea that all Mexicans are simply immigrants. For many families, movement across the border was not people crossing land. It was borders crossing people. History shows that the United States expanded through war, treaties, and territorial acquisition, including the Mexican-American War of 1846 through 1848. After that war, millions of Mexicans suddenly lived inside U.S. borders without ever moving. Their status changed, not their location. This reminds us that identity in America has always been shaped by power, policy, and geography, not just movement. Now, in terms of our European settlers, another historical truth. The founders and early European settlers came from somewhere else. They were immigrants, colonists, or settlers from Europe who established new societies on land already inhabited by indigenous peoples. This does not erase the institutions they built, but it does clarify the historical sequence. Indigenous people were here first. European settlers arrived later. Expansion involved displacement, conflict, and conquest. Understanding that timeline matters when we discuss belonging. There's also an important distinction when we come to African Americans. African Americans did not come to this country through voluntary immigration. Millions were forcibly brought through the transatlantic slave trade, transported as enslaved labor, stripped of citizenship, language, and legal rights. That experience is fundamentally different from immigration. It represented forced migration, exploitation, and generational injustice, realities that continue to shape American society today. So when we discuss identity, we must recognize that not all arrivals happen by choice. Now, why does language matter in education? Well, in education and in the public disclosures, the words we use shape perception. When we label groups without historical context, we risk reinforcing incomplete narratives. Students deserve to understand indigenous presence predates national borders. Borders changed over time. Colonization shaped modern nations. Some groups arrived voluntarily, others were forced. Identity in America is layered, complex, and historical. This is not about replacing one narrative with another. It's about expanding understanding. So here's my call to action. Educators, teach history with context, not shortcuts. Parents, encourage your children to ask deeper questions about identity and belonging. Students, examine who wrote the narratives you've learned and what perspectives may be missing. Leaders, frame policy conversations with historical awareness, not slogans. Because when we understand history more fully, we build empathy. And when we build empathy, we create stronger communities. America's history is not simple. It's layered, contested, and evolving. And learning that truth is not division. It is education. If this conversation made you think, share it with an educator, a parent, or a student. This is EdTalks Daily. I'm Dr. Josh Mack. And remember, informed minds build stronger schools and stronger communities. Have a nice day.